Well, greetings again, everyone. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by 101 Hemp, the makers of premium, full-spectrum, raw CBD oil products. And right now, for a limited time, you can get 35% off of their 101 CBD sampler pack. And in that pack, you get 3 sublingual CBD oil bottles, and you're able to choose from a variety of strengths, either 400, 800, 1600, or 3200 milligrams. And you also get 1 raw relief roll-on topical. That stuff is great. I love that stuff. So go over to 101hemp.org or 101cbd.org and order that 101 CBD sampler pack for 35% off. Now, the other thing they're doing is we're doing a bit of a giveaway this week. That is the week of October 26, 2020. And one lucky winner is going to win a travel-size tincture and a travel-size raw relief roll-on as well. Now, how do you win that? All you have to do is answer one trivia question. Here it is. What is the difference between CBD and CBDA? Now, you can find that answer over at 101hemp.org or 101cbd.org. I'm going to give you a hint. You can find the answer underneath the heading of New to CBD. Now, when you think you have the answer, go ahead and email that to info@101cbd.org. All right. Good luck, everybody. Now let's start the show. Brothers and sisters, welcome back. This is the In My Grow Show. I'm your host, Alex, and again, I'm joined by my buddy Rodney. Rodney, buddy, thank you once again for coming on the show, man.
It's always a pleasure, and I love your hat, man.
Hey,
you're in the season.
I am. You know, I the only time I wear it is when I go to a Dodger game, which hasn't been at all this year.
Yeah, live baseball. I miss it.
And the playoffs, but I'll be honest with you, man. I don't follow them all season.
And they even shortened the season for you this year, just for fans like
me.
you,
who
like to tune in the second half.
Well, what they should do is have 3 games and then the playoffs, and I'm in. I'm in, bro. I'm there. I'm there.
Yeah, it's always playoff. Any sport is always the most exciting, and baseball lasts just so long. 162 games, man. That's
162 games.
Yeah.
There's only 52 weeks in the year.
Yeah, they take up a bulk of the year.
So that means they're playing at least 3 games a day in some
market.
How the fuck does that work? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I get it. Oh, see, you know what I'm thinking is that each team plays 163 games.
Oh, right. No. 162 games.
I was like, how the fuck does that happen?
Each team does play 162 games, but they're playing amongst other teams, against other teams.
The whole season, though, is made up of 162 games, right?
Yeah.
Okay, see, that's where, in my mind, I thought each team
got you.
Played 162 games a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was all, I ran out of fingers. Anyways, man.
Baseball talk. Hey, it's a sports show.
Yeah, I, if you want to call that baseball talk, that shows you how... All right, let me open up my notes here, man. What's going on?
Man, there's so much going on. The election's coming up. I mean, I know we're going to get into a lot of different things. Cannabis is becoming legal in places, and shows are hopefully starting to come back.
That's what you were telling me, that Mexico City's going to have a show, or you're hoping to go to Mexico for an actual in-person cannabis show? They're
having an in-person show. It's called Copa Cannabica. Excuse me. Yeah, Copa Cannabica. And it's in Mexico City. They're expecting it to be small, but it's part of... he has these shows 2 times a year. I think he has one in northern Mexico and then southern Mexico. He's had them even here in Ensenada. So they're that close. And then he has one more in southern Mexico, which is usually down there, which could be, could be anywhere from Guadalajara, Mexico City, Oaxaca, so it's but he's going to have a show in November.
Dude, but it's not like COVID's any better in Mexico.
No, it's not. And their health, department or
that's why I was surprised. It's not so much
as,
that I'm afraid of it.
Yeah,
but I'm just surprised because I've read a lot of, some stuff coming out of Mexico. So I was like, wow, they're going to actually let them.
Yeah, they're going to let
do
them
this.
actually do it. So I'll keep tabs on it from here. I probably most likely will not
Don't
go.
be afraid.
But I actually will have some representatives there from my media group who will be there doing some recording, and we'll at least be able to put out some social media about what's going on, and we'll have a report going on. Maybe we can even do a Skype interview with somebody who's down there, or at least put a package together, because we will have video.
That'd be
that
wow,
will be
really?
shot down there. Yeah.
Huh. Hey, and I want to thank you for letting us do this show at the outside portions of the Rodney Media Studio.
That's right. No problem. Back here in the green patio.
In the green patio, yeah, man. So, as per my notes, man, I want to go over just a bit of product review. All right, so I get samples from Sesame Creek Collective every once in a while, and in that sample bag came one of these, which I'll put up, of the label, and I'll put up a picture of the label, and it is a capsule of whole flower THC capsule, sativa, 25 milligrams. When I
Capsules.
Capsules, yeah, it's
Okay.
a capsule, flower, little tiny, about this big.
Okay.
When I first saw it in the little goodie bag I was only thinking along the lines of feel good party type of feeling.
Sure.
But let me tell you a story, man. So I get migraines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I get migraines. I get probably, I don't know, one, sometimes, well, most of the times 2 a month, right? A lot of the migraine medicine that I take makes me really nauseous. So I don't take a lot of it, because the more I take, the more nauseous it makes me. It's kind of a trade-off between the fucking migraine and the nauseousness of it. Anyways, decided to take this. This worked really well. This worked just as good as the migraine medicine I take. Again, neither this nor the migraine medicine that I take. The only thing I can really take is Excedrin migraine. That's probably the lowest dose of whatever they have, because everything else, I'm just fucking retching up the whole time.
Is that standard for people who have migraines and take medicines? Do they get nauseous?
It is for some. I don't know for everyone. I just know how it affects me.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it doesn't matter what medicine I take, whether it's over the counter or prescription. It's never going to take away the pain completely. It's not like, oh, yay, take a pill and it's all the way gone. There's always that lingering painful feeling. It just takes away that really freaking sharp edge. Have you ever had a migraine?
No, I have never had. That I know of.
All right,
I've
so
had bad headaches.
you're lucky. So yeah, none of the medicine takes it away completely, but it does, again, take away that really sharp edge that just makes you want to freaking gouge your eyes out. At least I do. Anyway, so took this a couple of days ago because it happened to me on Thursday. Got a migraine. Worked just as well without the nausea. Which for me was a total bonus, man. I never even thought when I saw this about my migraines until I had one the other day, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to take that, see how it works. Worked awesome. No side effects. And the really crazy thing was that I thought I was going to feel the 25 milligrams. But I don't know if the pain was so bad from the migraine that I didn't feel 25 milligrams of THC. Do you know what I mean?
Or if that's what it took to get to
right,
or
if that's what it took to make me feel, kind of normal, or
Now, since it's a capsule, you're digesting it. It's going to hit you like an edible.
Right, exactly, and that's another reason. That's another thing that tripped me out, because I was expecting to feel it.
Sure.
But again, I don't know if just the pain was so much the body's like, no, man, this is all going to this migraine thing. But exactly. But you know what? It didn't take any longer for me to start feeling relief than it would any of my other medication or medicine. Like if I take another pill of anything else, it takes about 20-25 minutes to feel a little relief, and then from there it just builds, which is about what it took for this.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, it was, and this was, let's see, this is from Raw Brands, or no, what? Raw Flower Brands. Is that what that says? R-A and then Flower Brands, right?
Yes. Yep, Raw Flower Brand.
Yeah.
And that's good to know, because people do ask me for very specific, uses of cannabis for very specific ailments, right? And migraines is one of them. And I have a friend who has really bad migraines, and I've told him about it, but he's not a cannabis user, and so they're very hesitant, even though they'd rather just fucking lie in bed with a migraine.
It's fucking crippling.
But hey, try this to see how. But I don't have enough experience it myself personally, so I tell them to do the investigative work. But this is part of that work, right?
For
this is why we're here.
Label says, let's see, full spectrum, non-extracted, high bioavailability. Yeah, this was really good. I'm gonna see about how much is a fucking jar of them, or
okay.
Yeah, because there was only one in the package, which is fine. That's all I need for a sample.
Right.
But yeah, man, this worked really well for me. Thanks again for Sesame Creek Collective for sending that over. That was awesome. And for you, my friend, so last time I tried these. These are pouches that have THC liquid in them. You add them to your drinks. I added them to either a Sprite or like a ginger beer. Because the flavor says, what is it? Lavender lemon or?
Lemon lavender.
Lemon lavender, yeah. I wasn't too sure if that was going to go with everything, so I figured something spicy like a Sprite or a ginger beer is good.
Or even just sparkling water, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think sparkling water would be great, man. Try it out. There's 2 milligrams THC, 4 CBD. You know what? I felt a little high with this when I took it. Not too bad, just a little kind of.
2 milligrams.
But you know what, man? For whatever reason, maybe a couple hours afterwards, after I'd finished it, I got really sleepy. Really it just knocked out any kind of motivation. I was done. But that's just me. Let me know, try one tonight during the game.
Sure. Maybe it'll calm me down.
More baseball talk, yeah, man.
Yeah, the baseball games, they really get me as if I was actually going to go play, right? You get nervous, and being the Dodger fan that I am.
Stop, dude. Because look, first of all, I mean, yes, you are a Dodger fan, but you still answer your phone during the game, though. True Dodger fans, bro, that I've known. No, I'm kidding. What do I know? I'm not a fan, right?
I was trying to remember if you called me during the last game.
I've called you before. I've called you during, I think it was the first game or...
Yeah,
anyways,
hey, it's on,
doesn't matter. So, yeah, that's the product review. If you guys get a chance, check it out. Mr. Fly, go away.
Go find Mike Pence.
There you go. Go find Mike Pence. Go bug him. Go land on him. Yeah. So now let's move on to the strain of the week, Rodney. And I want to talk a little bit about this Mordor. Wasn't that the name of the wizard from...
Mordor?
Isn't that the name of the wizard from Lord of the Rings? Anyways, Mordor came in at a 24 THC, brother.
Pretty nice.
You know what? I wasn't too impressed by it.
Really?
I wasn't too impressed by it, man. Considering, yeah, it was a 24.
Autumn Mordor.
It was a, let me see. Let me pull up my notes here. So the Mordor is a cross between the Shrine Cut of the Super Silver Sour Diesel, because it does have that fuely kind of smell to it.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit piney, a little bit of lemony. Little musky. But like I was saying, I wasn't too impressed by it, man. For a 24, first of all, again, it was a bit dry. It's still a bit dry. Even with that humidity pack in there. Smells nice, but the high wasn't there for me. Now, here's the thing. So it was really good for me to sit at the computer and do a bunch of work. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Keeping me focused in that sense. Mm-hmm. But to hang out and party with it, I wasn't really there, man. I was really kind of, I was surprised, especially, again, since it was a 24. So the Mordor, I don't know. I'll come down, let's give it, I don't know, a 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10.
You put Mordor down the corridor of scoring.
Something, Yeah, I'd say about a 6. But what'd this cost me? An eighth cost me $30. I think $30 for the eighth.
Okay.
But, if you're going to sit in front of the computer, yeah, go for it. It is a 24, so I don't know, maybe if you're not a heavy user, it'll hit you better. I don't know what to tell you.
That could be it too. I mean, there are people who don't smoke often and just want a cool little mind shift, and it might be perfect for them.
That's all they need, hopefully. Let's see. All right, moving on.
Come home, the kids are crawling all over, and
kids were, they never went home.
your husband didn't make dinner.
Didn't make dinner.
Didn't mow the lawn.
Didn't do anything.
All he did was watch playoff baseball during the day.
See, that's why.
Yeah.
That's why you shouldn't have kids. No, that's not true. That's not true. All right. All right. Let's get to the report from the cannabis front line. So this first story.
Dun,
dun, dun, dun. I need some.
Need a jingle, yeah.
Some kind of music.
A stinger.
Is that what that's called?
Lines,
a stinger.
Yeah.
All right. So sometime last week I saw this story about Porsche lights being stolen in Amsterdam. And the thinking is that they're being used as grow lights.
These are Porsche lights?
Porsche lights.
Okay.
Porsche lights. So
now, is that a brand or is that a...
No, it's Porsche from the cars.
Oh, the Porsche lights.
Actual Porsche lights.
Porsche. Okay.
Porsche headlights. I'm sorry. Porsche headlights. Yeah, no,
okay.
Porsche headlights.
Headlights. Wow.
Porsche headlights.
Okay.
So, I saw this story on social media, so I went to go look for the actual, article where it came from. I found it, but it kind of, I don't know, it's my fault, right? This story came out in 2012. This is an 8-year-old story.
Okay.
But it's still a bullshit story, though, even 8 years in. Because the story, it never says, first of all, it doesn't say anything about anywhere else outside of Amsterdam. There's only been like 30 cases. And I was talking to my buddy Rooster about it, and he was, he's telling me that in the articles also, because I looked at a couple of different articles, and there's no real evidence that they're using them for grow lights. They're just talking to some guy who says, yeah, they may be being used for grow lights. And I'm like, well, what kind of slow news day is that? Be like, hey, there's missing Porsche headlights. Maybe they're using them for weed. Anyways, I feel cheated by it.
That's a story I would expect over here, where the government would try to twist a storyline just to get people against growers.
See? But again, man, I apologize. Anybody who followed this story got excited like I did on the internet or on Instagram. I saw it. I was like, oh, fuck. This is a stupid story. Anyways, why that was brought up is
because... But Amsterdam, man,
It's
it's quite an experience, a cannabis experience over there.
Is it?
Yes.
I've never experienced it.
I was there back in early 90s, and I was on my way to Romania, and we did a stop in Amsterdam 2 nights, and it was pretty incredible with how open, and you can't smoke it on the street at that time. You couldn't smoke it on the street. It was illegal to smoke it, probably even illegal to carry it, but you could smoke it in the cafes, which they had. And the cafes were basically bars. They typically did not have alcohol, hard liquor
at the cafes.
I don't even remember that they may have had beer. I don't remember. That's a good sign. I don't remember. And but you had a big menu up on the wall, and you could choose what they had. I didn't know a lot about cannabis at the time. I mean, I knew I did smoke it, and but as far as the different names or differentiating different strains with a different feeling.
Planes, man.
Planes.
All the time.
Yeah, that's so I wasn't too picky. And in fact, we didn't have a smoking device. We noticed everybody had brought their own smoking device, so we didn't have anything. So let's just get some hash, roll it in a joint. I mean, rolling a hash joint.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what we did. We rolled a little pinner hash joint. I know it wasn't the best way to experience Amsterdam, but I was on a Christian missionary trip.
Is that right?
I was documenting it. I was documenting a Christian missionary. I guess they would call it a help, but a mission that for the orphanages in Romania. So we stopped in Amsterdam.
No
had
shit.
a few nights on the way in and on the way out.
So did you stop in the coffee shop with someone from the ministry?
No, I didn't. I stopped with my cameraman, and I took the trip with a pastor.
Sure.
A pastor took us.
Right.
But he's the one who told us, go down to the city. Go see the cafes, go see the red light district. And coming from a pastor, right, you expect, but this is one of those pastors. He was, you know, he was when he was a young man, he went to Mexico to study to be a warlock. So he was into drugs. He had done acid. He had done everything, right? So his pastor life was really a reflection of what he had done as a young man. So he knew and he understood what was out there. So he told us, go down to the red light district. Now, he wasn't saying go and throw your money there. He was just saying go experience it. It's very surreal. I want you to see what the culture is here when it comes to nightlife and legalized drugs and even sex, prostitution. Go check it out. So we did, and it was really incredible. It was exactly like he said, surreal. Where else would you walk down the street and go, no, it smells like nice weed coming out of a building or a restaurant.
Hey, so I feel like you buried the lead there as far as like him wanting to study being a warlock first, because
yeah,
that's the story I want to talk to him about.
Yeah, he wanted to be a warlock.
How do you make that transition?
Yeah, he went down to Mexico to be a warlock.
You don't hear a lot of those stories. Hey, I went down to Mexico to be a warlock. I mean, hey, I went down to Mexico to be a priest. Okay.
Or to find a wife, or to but I want to go be a warlock.
Be a warlock. That's fuck.
I didn't hear too much about that, but he was such a he was a really good guy who worked for a really exceptional nonprofit organization that did truly help orphanages in Romania. And I had been editing a program for him the 2 years prior to his trip to China and his first trip to Romania. And this was just about a year and a half after the Berlin Wall fell and communism was ousted. So we, in some areas of our travel in Romania, we were the first Westerners to have been seen in some of these places in maybe ever, but certainly decades, because it was a closed society. So everywhere we went, people were looking at us, staring at us, because when we did try to dress plain, neutral colors. I mean, they told us don't take anything too extravagant. Nothing with logos. Did they ask? Did they ask you to leave your Levi's at home? No, that we took. We took our jeans. Yeah, and that's a good question, because I thought, is that too? Is that too gaudy? Yeah, well, it makes a statement, right? It's Western civilization there. Yeah. When you bring in some Levi Strauss jeans.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering.
Yeah, so they it was. I saw a lot of poverty. I was in the orphanages. I was in little villages that were built on along the river, just so that they could have running water. And I thought, before I went over there, I go, man, I knew I was going to see some of these types of things. And I thought, man, am I going to come back and just sell everything and be a missionary? But no, you when you go there, you realize this is their life. This is what they grew up in. This is what they're used to. You have to kind of separate yourself from that feeling. Right, you can't unless you really want to give yourself to that. But I was able to separate myself and come back and go, nah, man, I'm cool with my stuff. I'm cool with my light switch, and the running water.
Dude, there's a reason why we live in America.
Yeah.
I've been to other places. They're cool and all, but I don't want to.
Well, that's the thing. One of the things that I learned going over there is that we are out of touch with what's going on in other countries. And before you start donating things, and this goes with any nonprofit organization, before you start donating things or sending your money or supporting one who's helping other people in other countries, find out what they're going to do with that money. Because when we were there, he took us to the kitchen where World Vision had donated a couple of stoves so that they could cook food. Mm-hmm. They don't have gas.
Oh, nice.
They don't have any gas in their infrastructure. So they have two big
commercial
boat
stoves.
anchors, sitting in their basement kitchen that they can't use.
Just taking up space.
Yep. And another nonprofit went over there and built half a schoolhouse.
Why half?
They just abandoned the job.
The bottom half or the top half?
They built they built 4 walls.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
nice.
They built 4 walls, and so you couldn't even go, take anybody in there. But it was disheartening, because you knew that somebody was trying to help, and either they ran out of money. But here you have these orphans and these families associated with this community who were just they really feel like they were abandoned, right? I mean, here's some things, and
here's some things that you may not, may not be able to use.
Yeah. So I got a bad taste in my mouth for those organizations because they didn't finish the job. But we were there to deliver clothes and food and Bibles and supplies for the kids. So we knew that stuff was being used because we were, that particular organization was hands-on.
Wow, what a trip. I never knew you went to go. Well, yeah, man, just the whole.
That all came out of Porsche headlights.
Porsche headlights. See, there you go.
See?
I love it. Wow, what a trip, man. All right, next story comes out of, so it is that Purdue Pharma is actually going to pay, or at least the settlement came through of over $8 billion that they're going to pay for the opioid crisis.
Oxycontin,
yeah,
sure.
Yeah. What was it? The Steckel family?
Why aren't those people in prison?
That's a very good question.
I mean, they can buy their way out, right? You can pay your debt to society.
Because they, exactly, dude. They're going to pay their debt to society. They, from what I hear, okay, so they're going to pay.
They admitted to corruption, though.
They admitted to corruption. They admitted to all of those things. I think that was part of the settlement, was admitting to, they told doctors to overprescribe. But what gets me is that, okay, from, 2016 to 2017, they made, $4 billion over what they already made, in profits. Now, I'm not going to say all of that came from Oxycontin, but yeah, dude, like you said, they admitted to actually saying, we caused these things. We did this. And here's $8 billion.
Is that a United States company?
Do you know?
Because a lot of those, I only bring that up because a lot of those medicines are developed through, federally granted funds. They're research, right?
Right, sure.
The government's the one doing the research, and then once they put that, once they get, or maybe it's the company doing the research, but it's federally funded,
right? Which
is our tax dollars, and then now they're going to raise the price to whatever to sell us back what we paid for, as far as research.
Yeah,
which is,
you know what? That I don't know if Purdue Pharma is an American company.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? Several state attorney generals have come out and said that's too low, and there are a bunch of states still going to go after them.
Sure, they should. Individually.
Dude, that's pretty criminal. To say the least. I mean, I think I read somewhere something like 400,000 people have died because of the opioid crisis.
Sure. I know somebody personally who died, and she wasn't on the street strung out. She was just trying to get through life.
And that's the thing, man. A lot of new, let's say, cases of addictions are people who come from pain management.
Yep.
Or people who came from pain management because, they got strung out on these things, and then, either the doctor said, hey, you don't need it anymore, or it just got too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's, it's a good and the bad. I don't know. I think they could get more. Like you said, somebody should go to prison. Somehow, somewhere, somebody should go to prison over it. Good on them for actually getting the $8 billion. Now, are they actually going to pay $8 billion? Does this still have to go to an appeals court?
Right. We'll get buried in courts for a decade.
So, yeah, you just wait and see, man.
Mm-hmm.
I guess wait and see on all that. And that, brothers and sisters, is a report from the Cannabis Front Line. There are links in the show notes so you can read them whenever you want.
Porsche Lights,
man. Let me know what you think about that story. It looks pretty silly and ridiculous. But now let's get to all the ballot measures that cannabis, because it is an election year, cannabis is out there in a big way everywhere. Let me see here. So, do you mind if I do the state wrap-up first? What state?
No, not at all.
What?
Go ahead before we hit California. Because I know your listeners are everywhere, and we're going to get down to very specific locations, but people want to know what's going on in their neck of the woods.
Yeah. Okay. So, starting in Arizona, Arizona's got Prop 207. Let's see. It reads here, and I'm getting all of this from the NORML website. That is normal.org. Go over there, become a member.
Excellent.
Let's see, and it reads here, in the interest of the effect use of law enforcement resources, enhancing revenue for public purposes and individual freedom, the responsible use of marijuana should be legal for persons 21 years of age and older, subject to state regulations, taxations, and local ordinances. That's what Arizona's going for. That is Prop 207. That sounds like a really good thing. That sounds like they're going to try to legalize cannabis in all sorts of forms. I don't see medical in here, though, for it. But, yeah, good on Arizona.
And that's a, somewhat red state.
It's a pretty red state, man. Arizona's, aside from all the people from California moving out to Arizona,
sure.
Yeah, it's a pretty Republican state. But you know what? They've been moving in that direction for a while, though.
Yeah, they have.
Excuse me. They've been moving in that direction for a while. Actually, they got medical a few years ago. But good on them for, sounds like they're getting adult use. All right, next up we've got Montana, and they've got I-190 and CI-118. All right, let's see here. I-190 legalizes the possession and use of limited amounts of marijuana. What does that mean, limited amounts? I can only use a limited amount? I don't like the wording on that.
Yeah, limited sounds too limiting.
It's too limiting. I don't like limits on my marijuana. Okay, I-190 requires the Department of Revenue and License to regulate the cultivation, transportation, and sales of marijuana and marijuana-infused products and inspect the premises where marijuana is cultivated and sold. All right. So, yeah, it sounds like they're going full legal also. It also sounds like they're about to get hopefully they don't get a whole bunch of high-priced regulations.
They will.
Like California does. Well, that's, we'll get to that. All right, let's see. They also have CI 118 amends the Montana Constitution to allow the legislature or the people by initiative to establish the legal age of purchasing, consuming, or possessing marijuana. Oh, so they're still deciding on what the legal age is? Oh, it says here they're looking for 21.
Should be 21.
That's fair enough, yeah.
That's 21, yeah.
All right, New Jersey, public question number 1. I don't get this. Why public question number 1? Maybe that's just how they do it in New Jersey, huh? And it asks, New Jersey's public question number 1, do you approve amending the Constitution to legalize a controlled form of marijuana called cannabis? So, I like a state constitution amendment for cannabis because it's less likely that a politician can threaten you with taking away your right to have cannabis. I wish California had a state amendment to the Constitution, but well, what are you going to do? Like I said, we'll talk about that in a minute. Again, South Dakota has also a constitutional amendment A. Title A amends the South Dakota Constitution to legalize, regulate, and tax marijuana, and to require the legislature to pass laws regarding hemp, as well as laws ensuring access to marijuana for medical use. I like that also. Let's see. Now going down to Mississippi. Mississippi has Initiative 65 and Alternative 65A. They've got combating issues. Okay. Should Mississippi allow qualified patients with debilitating medical conditions? What does that mean, debilitating medical conditions? Because carpal tunnel is debilitating for some people.
Everything can be debilitating,
right?
Depending on...
It's all about the definition, right?
Sure.
All right. So everything, let's say everything. Conditions are certified by Mississippi's licensed physicians to use medical marijuana. Now, wasn't Mississippi the only state that was allowed to actually test cannabis?
Yes,
right?
To grow it.
To grow it for actual testing?
For federal testing. You know, that good Mississippi bud.
That's not what I heard.
That River OG.
All right, South Dakota has Measure 26, and it initiates measures to legalize marijuana for medical use. Okay, South Dakota's vote for medical cannabis, and that is Measure 26. Okay, now, getting to the presidential candidates. I mean, okay. Well, I mean, Biden's the strongest candidate who's actually may win. who actually may do something for cannabis. I don't like his total platform or his total ideas for it. I can understand. I like the idea of expungement of past criminal offenses. The whole idea of mandatory rehab bugs me. Because that's what he's putting forward to. Mandatory rehab if you get caught with cannabis. And then decriminalizing it for medical use nationwide. That I like too. Decriminalize nationwide. I mean, I don't know. A few weeks ago, I thought that wasn't far enough. I thought decriminalizing still gets people in the system. And while it still does, I'm going to have to back that whole idea of decriminalizing for just medical use because it does help normalize the conversation. Hopefully next voting cycle, next election cycle, we'll actually get it there. But at least that way, the conversation goes forward in places like Idaho and Iowa, in the middle of America. Mm-hmm. And, that's really what the goal is, right? That's what we're going for.
Yeah, it's branding for a product. It's branding the concept of cannabis as a health aid, and any forward step or progress would be appreciated. I need to stop the record.
Yeah, I want to say I've changed my mind a little bit about that. I'm not such a rigid stance now. Just be like, no, it's not enough. I mean, it's the best we're going to get this time.
And that's happening not only on a national level, but regional, so statewide, here in California and locally too. Those types of feelings. You want cannabis, to be legal and normal, but it's not. So any step forward, even though it can kind of be detrimental to the industry for a certain amount of time, you almost kind of have to just swallow it and say, okay, well, at least we're talking about it. At least there. Yeah. But there are some issues that's why it's important to get involved with what's going on in your community, especially if you're a cannabis advocate. And we'll get to that when we talk about the local ballot measures. So, but go ahead. Yeah, continue.
Well,
with
because
your
for
overall
me,
statement.
because for me, I get impatient. I just want the same recognition and, access to it the way people have to alcohol. I remember before COVID, we went to a place called Great Wolf Lodge. It's a indoor water park resort place down in LA. I was a little jealous. I don't drink a lot, but there were parents walking around with their kids, 10:30 in the morning, with their Bloody Marys and, kids in their little life jackets. I wasn't pissed off. I wasn't judging the parents because they were drinking at 10:30. Not even my trip. My trip was like, I just wanted a little 10 milligram pump of THC and my fucking coffee in the morning. I go slide down some water slides too. Mm-hmm. That's all I wanted. The same kind of treatment, that same kind of access to it. Mm-hmm. That's all, But yeah, man, that's really my big trip, is just the same kind of normalization as alcohol. It's,
sure.
But decriminalization for medical, it's a pretty good step forward. Mm-hmm. Again, the middle of America gets to talk about.
That's right. That's all. That's the silver lining for sure.
All right, now let's get to let's get to the state of California. Then we'll get to the more local stuff, because I know you got a bunch of stuff about this. That's about cannabis here in California.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I was impressed by was how many ballot measures there are in all the counties. If you go to the normal website, that's norml.org. Yes. You go to if you're from California, I think you do CalNormal or CANORML.org, and you can see all of the counties that have, and municipalities that have ballot measures for cannabis, and they're all up and down the state. It's quite impressive. But it's you see where they're at in their stage of legalization. It's like here in Oxnard, we had to vote on should a certain amount of percentage be used for towards the city budget. That's the very first thing that they start to introduce. They want to hit you with that tax. And so looking up and down the state, I mean, of course we live in Ventura County, but I was looking at all of the other counties. So you see where they're at based on that. A lot of them they had that measure, how much of the percentage. And then now it starts, and then the ones who are more advanced, like us locally, we're talking about dispensaries and cultivation and processing, how many cultivators, how many acres can be dedicated in your county to cultivation. So California, and I just think how happy we should be that it's progressed to this stage here. But as far as we are along from a social impact perspective that cannabis has the potential to have, it's just not there yet, because it's such a patchwork of legality. You can't do the same thing in one county that you can in the other, and it just makes for an unstable pipeline of cannabis, and especially if you need it medicinally.
Yeah, and that's what's always bugged me about the direction that California took with cannabis. The fact that when we wrote the law, and I say we because I was just as excited about it as anyone, as far as 65, was that we let municipalities actually vote on whether they wanted to allow legal cannabis in their jurisdiction, whether that be cultivation, processing, or retail sales. And that really hurt the industry at large, first of all, because it really did limit the amount of shelf space that there is for legal products to be put on. It also limited the amount of revenue that counties could really enjoy. They could actually collect, because counties, with that regulation of saying, well, every municipality can vote against it or vote not to have it. A lot of places, they created these cannabis deserts where cannabis is legal for me to have, for me to buy, for me to smoke, for me to enjoy, but it may not be legal for me to buy anywhere near me. So I'm either traveling to another county, giving my dollars to someone else, some other municipality, or I'm getting it from the black market, which my dollars don't go to any municipality. So yeah, I think that's and that's why I'm glad to hear what you're saying, as far as like so many municipalities are starting to really talk about bringing cannabis industry in there, into their communities. And part of that it's probably because of COVID, man, because it is seen, you can create jobs with this.
Sure. It didn't shut down the industry.
No, it didn't. And that's why when you say, yeah, there's a bunch of them out there, it's like, well, kind of about time, man. That's the only way we're going to really, because, a lot of the times, well, sometimes when I have this conversation about revenue with people, they're like, well, cannabis was supposed to pave the streets with gold in California. And I was like, well, yeah, but that's only if everybody participates. That's only if all cities participate. We still can, just really change people's lives, their way of living, So, yeah, I think that's cool, man.
Yeah, it's just the tough part to get over is how states view legalization as like a potential windfall financially for their budgets, whether it's a state budget, a county budget, or a city budget, and they start putting all the licensing rates and taxes and fees, and they want to extract the maximum amount of revenue from this industry, and it's an industry that's totally unrelated to government, but they want to start funding government programs that should have been paid for by other tax revenue. They want cannabis to come in and kind of save the day. Is that why you're legalizing it? As cannabis advocates, we do it for the health of people, right? Yeah. We do it because it's a compassionate plant, because it's a medicine. It can truly help people in so many ways. But the cities really just do take a business approach to it, because a lot of them are broke, especially now COVID. I know that that happened here locally, and we'll talk about that, how our local city, Oxnard, just tacked on some fees that were just right in the middle of the application process. They tacked on some fees that it really raised a lot of eyebrows.
Well, I mean, look, I don't mind municipalities. I don't mind my town taxing cannabis. That's fine. But you can't plug every hole with cannabis.
That's right.
It's just, you can't do it. You're harming the industry. in more than two ways. Because we also have to think about, with that high cost of regulation, that means that less people are able to enter the legal market. So you have more people wanting to enter the illegal market.
Yep. And you're hurting the people who need it the most.
Yeah.
It could be veterans, it could be low-income elderly, it could be just a regular working Joe or Joanne who have aches and pains, who use cannabis as medicinally, and they're the ones who can't afford to go and pay $200 a month for their cannabis, whether it's flower or edibles or your capsules. And unfortunately, they're the ones that get hurt the most. And then, of course, and that's the reason why they will stay in the legacy market.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, all those things are true, man. Okay, so let's take where I live in Ventura, in Ojai. It's a little town in Ventura County.
1 hour north of Los Angeles.
North of Los Angeles.
For those of you who just tuning in.
And let me see. Let me get there. So.
It's Measure G
in
Ohio.
Measure G. So one of the things we get to vote on is this Measure G, and the city's wanting to impose a 3% tax on cannabis businesses. But they're also wanting to leave open the availability to tax up to 10% on top of everything else.
So the cap is 10%.
So the cap is 10%. So, in theory, I think we'd wind up being taxed like 39% for each cannabis product.
Because isn't the state about 25, 27%?
Yeah, by the time, yeah.
So anything added is just adding.
Anything added is just, the way I see it, making me pay more.
Sure.
Again, you can't plug every hole with cannabis.
No, you can't.
Some of those companies, because 2 years ago they raised the taxes in Ohio. Some of the companies absorbed the taxes, didn't pass it along to the consumer. I know at least one dispensary that did that. But once you start putting on new taxes like this, I don't see how they can absorb it, and this is going to end up being passed on to the consumer, man. And once again, it's the same conversation as, with that high cost of taxation, do people really want to get into legal weed? It's just easier and cheaper to get into the black market.
Sure.
And since my weed is going up, well, you know what? It's cheaper to buy my weed from the black market. Is it unsafe? It could be. It could be. Are there illegal versions of these little capsules on the market? Very possibly. Is there any way to test that these capsules on the black market actually have complete flower in them? No, there's no way to know.
Nope.
But if I'm on a fixed income, what are my choices?
Yep.
Kind of like, no, I don't want to make the comparison of OxyContin. But yeah, dude, another 10% on top of everything else, it just seems excessive, man.
Yeah, it is. And, I think those two ideals, the fact that you're hurting the people that need it the most, and you're going to drive, you're stimulating the legacy market. Those two issues alone are, I think it comes down to education on city leaders, council members, mayors, city managers, to understand the long-term potential of cannabis. It's been around for, tens of thousands of years. And they're trying to rush through ordinances in a matter of months that would hopefully move a city forward. But it always reminds me of, if you ever talk to a CPA, they talk about being rich and being wealthy. And, rich is what people are mostly try to associate themselves with from an image perspective. You got the car, you got the boat, you got the purse. That's not wealth. That's not wealthy. And so I look at the city kind of the same thing. The city's trying to buy the boat, buy the car, fix the streets. But why not use cannabis as something that can generate or can produce generational wealth for that city, right? I don't think that cannabis was ever going to be the saving grace for any city financially unless you embrace it completely and you bring that cultivation and you bring the processing and the manufacturing, the research at the local universities. Then you're starting to talk about and creating jobs. Hemp. If hemp is your product, doing jobs and training and partnering with unions. Now you're making a difference in people's lives, even if they're not associated with cannabis, right? So I don't think that the cities really look at that longevity of cannabis as something that they can ride on into the future. They just look at it as a Band-Aid that could hopefully fix their financial woes. And unfortunately, advocates like ourselves, we want cannabis to be here for the long haul, and we see that potential. But having spoken to city council members, myself personally, when they're making these decisions, they'll thank me. Well, thank you for sending me that, that article. They have no clue. They did not know when they won their election that they were going to be making decisions on cannabis.
Well, sure.
Even 2 years ago.
Sure.
They are really out on the ocean with regards to their knowledge of what cannabis, the potential of it is. So that's where our work comes in. That's why podcasts like yours are so important, because it is that mainstream discussion that has to be had, and unfortunately and fortunately, it's going to be up to us to keep that conversation going.
And like we've spoken about before, I mean, in my opinion, if the municipalities or cities or towns want more out of cannabis, they shouldn't limit the number of licenses. Because if you're limiting the number of stores in your town, like let's say in Ojai, they're limiting it to 3, but yet they want to get all of this revenue out of 3 stores. That's not going to happen. Like you said, cannabis in that sense in Ojai isn't going to solve Ojai's problem. You're asking an awful lot from 3 stores. So, I mean, yeah, if you want cannabis to plug those holes, open up the licensing, man.
Yeah.
I think let the market bear what it's going to bear, kind of like liquor stores.
The liquor stores. There's a building here in downtown Oxnard that's been here for decades. That's a 3-story bank building that's kind of inverted, has some interesting structural interesting structural layout. But the city had to decide whether we wanted to tear down the building and build something there, and they were going to build a 7-Eleven.
What?
Yeah, they're going to build a 7-Eleven on a corner that already had some sort of convenience store or gas station right across the street. Like, why are you doing that? But fortunately, the citizenry spoke up and said, "No, that's a great building. Why don't you market it or use it? Or if you're going to tear it down, just put a 7-Eleven there.
Better, yeah, 7-Eleven, a parking lot.
7-Eleven, yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, and of course, it's the south part of town, so and that's what people were saying. Said, there's a liquor store right down the street. There are convenience stores, and you're going to put a 7-Eleven there again. That's it does take advocacy to stop something like that from happening. So I was actually kind of proud of the citizenry for speaking up on that one.
Wow, nice. All right, the other thing we're voting on, and I say we because it's a county vote, is Measure O.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see here. It says, this initiative would amend the Ventura County Ordinance Code to allow the commercial cultivation, processing, distribution, and sales of cannabis within the unincorporated area of Ventura. Sales could occur only between licensed distributors. The initiative would not allow the retail sales of cannabis to the general public within the unincorporated area. So basically what we're voting on is all other business aspects for cannabis except for retail to the public. They want to get distribution so you can sell between distributors and, manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
They want to have, manufacturing out there. Because if you remember, was it last year that hemp regulation got shot down? think that was last year, wasn't it?
In Ventura County?
Yeah.
Yes, because they were growing it and it smelled and people were pissed and they didn't want it growing in there.
They thought it was too closely associated with cannabis and, I don't know, long-haired and dreadlocks. Not sure what the fear... Wow.
It was really smell. Smell was the number one concern for everybody. And I get it to a certain extent. I mean, if you live... There were some apartments that were across the street from a hemp field or actually across the freeway. And the guy, we were thinking, especially in this day and age, you being a person of color... You're going to school, middle school, and you're smelling like hemp.
Yeah.
You think they're not going to be suspicious of you and maybe want to take a look in your backpack? Yeah, And that I had never thought of that. But when she said, my kid goes to school smelling like hemp, I go, wow, that's that.
And the thing to clarify is that you can't tell the difference between the smell of hemp and the smell of cannabis.
Nope.
You can't tell them apart just from smell. I couldn't. And yeah, it's a funky smell, man. You're gonna smell to high heaven. Okay, but the real big selling point on this measure is that it only uses existing buildings.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I understand. That's the way they wrote it, just so it could get passed. That's great because it's kind of like what they did in Carpinteria for the cultivation. Is that they were allowed to cultivate in greenhouses, but no new greenhouses were able to be built. You either had to refurbish the ones that were there. Well, it's basically what you had to do. You had to operate on the ones that were already there, or refurbish the ones that are there, make them so you can actually use them. So, I mean, that's a good thing. No new buildings are going up, so people don't get too scared about how it's going to take over the county. But yeah, vote yes on Measure O because we need some of that industry in the unincorporated parts of the county. There's nobody out there. It's all farmland for the most part.
It's farmland, and I dug a little bit. Didn't take too long to see who was funding the yes vote on Measure O in Ventura County, and it was a corporation by the name of Glass Investment Projects. Guess what they do?
They do cultivation.
They build greenhouses. Yeah. They renovate greenhouses. Yeah. What did you just say? Renovate a greenhouse. Yeah. They're not from this area, but they bankrolled this whole measure. And they do have some local farms. They grow tomatoes. Sure. They're fully outfitted to grow cannabis, of course, should they decide to, but that's up to the they don't how Measure O goes? that company doesn't Glass Investment Projects doesn't own from what I understand doesn't own the tomato grow, but they're obviously in their ear, so if they it's going to be up to that grower to determine whether they want to. But that's one thing I didn't like about it. And, because it was, here we go again, with people with money can come in and dictate. Can you imagine if you could make a law based on something that you wanted to do? Said, it's a requirement that a podcast has to be, and then all of a sudden here I am, with the answer. So that does not fall good with me, especially coming from a social equity aspect. As you know, I'm a big proponent of social equity. And the fact that you can't build a greenhouse on your land, if you had land and you said, hey, I've been a legacy grower, but because the guy next door already has a greenhouse.
Well, a lot of that, so that greenhouse thing, from how I understand it, comes, I think it was written, there was something going on back in the 70s when a lot of greenhouses were being built.
Mm-hmm.
And it was known as white blight because people would look out into valleys and just, the fear was they were going to see just nothing but white greenhouses.
Sure.
But I see what you're talking about as far as like if you own the land, who are they to tell you, hey, you can't build a greenhouse?
Yeah, you can't build a greenhouse. And whenever they do finally open it up to because 500 acres, and another fact that I found quite astonishing was that 500 acres, which we're being limited to, Humboldt and Santa Barbara County don't even cultivate in up to those numbers of acreage.
Sure.
They're in like the 200s. And so Ventura County did open it up quite a bit. So eventually, I really doubt initially we're going to have that space filled up with cannabis. We should, but should they open it up even more when they see that it's good, hopefully they allow these other individuals to build their greenhouse and get into the industry and make this place more or a little bit of a mecca, perhaps.
So social equity wise, what would you want to see? Them to allow new greenhouses to be built?
I think social equity components should always be included in every cannabis legalization discussion, and whatever it can be. I don't think there are model ordinances out there of things that can happen or things that could be included in ordinances, but why do we have to? I think we can be cutting edge in some of our ideas,
okay.
Whatever it is we come up with.
Sure.
If
it's a new industry.
Especially in a agricultural rich location like Ventura County, is it allowing them or maybe incubating a business, a minority-owned business? And when I say minority, it doesn't always have to be people of color. It can be women, because women-owned businesses they're tough. They have a tough time.
Sure, minority doesn't always mean color.
Yeah, so incubate a cultivation business with some of the money that's coming from the other, because as a whole, we want to see these businesses succeed. We don't want them to, because cannabis is difficult, and cannabis is something that the legacy growers and people, the legacy industry people, they're not always the best rounded out business people, right? There's certain areas of their business process where they lack. So you have to help them, especially if it's something that some training, some human resources or business planning or accounting, something like that helps them. To me, that is what a social equity component could always help do is that help businesses, minority-owned businesses, enter, exist, and be successful in the cannabis industry. So whatever it is, from if it's a cultivation, then we should always set aside at least a portion of that energy, a portion of that ordinance to where we address a social equity issue, whatever that may be. But we're not there yet. I mean, we're as social equity advocates, we're just fighting for scraps, literally.
Yeah, we're just fighting to be recognized, really.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I wonder is also the 5,000 acres. I mean, is there 5,000 acres of greenhouse?
I think it's 500 acres. 500 acres.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there 500 acres of greenhouse
in Ventura County? Yeah, I don't think there is. I think that was one of the things that they mentioned. And some of the advocates were writing that even though there isn't 500 acres of indoor grow capability,
because if
they're looking, they kind of gave the people who wrote the measure at least some recognition for at least saying, well, let's go for a bigger chunk so that later on down the road some new buildings can be built.
Oh, that's what the question that I was going to ask was, if they're not allowing new buildings and there isn't a building that's actually 500 acres, then what are we talking about?
Yeah, and I think each one is even limited to how much they can do on one property. And I don't know what that is. I think it's a matter of it's probably just a matter of acreage.
But that's Measure O here locally.
Yeah, Measure O, and people were texting me and sending in their ballots. What should I do? And I would have that kind of a discussion with them. I go, well, I don't really like the way it's written and what its limitations are, but that's our job.
Sure,
we need to get cannabis on the measure, on the ballot.
Here it is. Make your decision.
Make the decision, and then you have to keep working. You have to keep working. You have to show up to the county supervisor meetings, to city council meetings, find out what's moving forward. Is the money really going to pay for that thing that you said it was going to pay for? You can't, gone are the times when we could just vote and then just go and do your thing.
Well, I don't think those times were ever really here, bro. It's just a mentality thing.
Well, that was it. That was the mentality.
But,
I mean, me growing up, everybody just kind of votes and just kind of goes along. Go to a city council meeting, there's nobody there. But now we realize that elections do have consequences. So now it's really being thrown in our face that you really have to start paying attention. Being informed about the measures isn't enough. Now the follow-up is what's really important.
Yeah. I mean, being informed and voting. Okay, I voted my conscience.
Yeah.
Now, okay.
But now what do I do?
Like you said, is that money being used for what you told me it was going to be used for?
Right. And, whether it's an oversight committee or really it's just staying in tune with what's going on at the council meetings. That's where you learn the most. I mean, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where decisions are made. And you have to watch your city council, too. I noticed that even here with Oxnard, sometimes, I would look at the agenda weeks in advance or a week in advance, and cannabis wouldn't be on the agenda, or the report that they said was going to come out wasn't on the agenda. Then all of a sudden, the day before, they sneak it in. Or a couple days before they sneak in, oh yeah, we're going to do this report and we're going to talk about this. Like, damn, at least let the people prepare.
Yeah, let them read it.
Let us know what you're going to report on or what you're going to talk about, so that we can. And I understand city council people, that's not their number one job. They're busy, but yet they're making decisions that are going to last generations.
Yeah,
they should pay more attention to what's going on in these, especially a new industry like cannabis. They don't understand all of the idiosyncrasies of manufacturing, of creating isolates, and all of those things are important. They just hear cannabis and they think there's going to be a nuclear bomb going off over in the industrial area of the city, when it's just like making fruit juice or mayonnaise or anything else. It's just a process. A mayonnaise factory can blow up too. So it really is an educational process, but unfortunately, that's the bad side of seeing so many measures statewide, as well as that these municipalities are making decisions too quickly. These municipalities are making decisions too quickly for the care and understanding that cannabis deserves. For me, I just think that they have to take their time. Cities like even Oxnard got criticized for taking the slow approach. I love the slow approach. Now we can work it out just fine. It's because once you turn the spigot on, there's no going back.
No,
it's harder to go back and change things.
That's just it. It's hard to rewrite regulation. Once regulation is written and industries are moving forward on that, to take a step back and say, "Whoa, wait, we need to change this." It's not an easy thing, man.
Nope.
And yeah. So what else you got in the state, man?
Well, in the state, I don't pay attention too much outside of what's going on here and some of the other. I lived in Riverside County for a while, and I know they're doing that. They're at the percentage, voting on the tax and cultivation, and so they're about maybe a little bit ahead of us. But here locally, I think what was it was disheartening to see our city council get their green, greedy eyes so entrenched into the cannabis vision of how it can be a savior for a city, even though they kind of say they know it's not going to be. During the cannabis licensing process, this is after groups up to 50, I believe, had already put in their application for licensing. The city decided to throw a $250,000, I call it a bribe or a pay-to-play fee, on top of the licensing fee once you get your license.
And you don't get your licensing fee back if you don't...
No, if you don't get it. And each of those 50 are paying about $18,000, depending on how many stages they get through.
Oh, nice.
So, say it's $9,000 or $10,000, the average for everybody, 10 times, times 50, there you do the math. But that's supposed to only cover the work that the consultants, the HDL, that they're receiving. HDL is everywhere. This industry has been better for HDL in California than anything. Their name is all over the fucking place.
Wow.
They're consulting cultivations. They're consulting municipalities. They're making that $10,000 to $17,000 for licensing. They're telling the city, it's like they're taking that rubber stamp everywhere throughout the city and making through the state and making a shitload of money. So cannabis has been good for HDL, that's for sure. But that fee is supposed to go. They think they're looking to raise $2.2 or $2.4 million,
something
right?
Like that, yeah.
Okay, and of course, my idea, which I did bring up to City Council, was that any fees that would be generated should go back into an incubation program to help minority or even just the cannabis businesses be successful.
Sure.
Because now you're creating that generational wealth for the city, as opposed to just bringing in some money real quick to go open up a library, which is that's what they're going to do. They're gonna use some of the money. I'm not opposed to libraries, but you close down a fucking library, dude. City, yeah. You close down a library. How did that go astray? How did the funding for a library go astray? Now you're waiting for weed to save the day for the library.
Save the day for you, yeah.
Right. It was part of the money is going to go to a multi-purpose center in one of the areas of the city which has been disproportionately affected by the drug war, which is good. So it's hard to say that there's anything bad about that, but you're only putting a Band-Aid on a problem that without cannabis it would have continued to be there. So now you really need cannabis. So now that's going to hopefully spur them to ensure the success of these businesses, but I doubt it. I would rather see that money go back into a program that teaches maybe two of the licensee holders, maybe they're minority and they came in through the social equity application process, and help them be successful. They're local people. It's cannabis. Let's create that generational wealth for them, but more importantly for the city, so that the city can see that the future is bright, as opposed to the future is just is a short-sighted money grab.
I think the city should do both. I think they should use that money to put together a workshop, like you were saying, to help educate business owners in cannabis. But also open up the licensing, man. You want to make those $2.2 million again. You're trying to get it out of 4 people.
Sure.
Open it up to everybody. Let everybody come in, pay. What was it originally? $25,000 instead of $250. What was it originally that they were asking?
It was about for the licensing. It came out to just under $18,000.
Right, but they were also asking for
$25,000.
Right, for some kind of fund, some kind of help the city fund or something.
Right.
Yeah, it's just keep it at that. Let everybody apply and. Come up with it that
bring
way.
it up.
But instead of trying to get it all out of these 4 people and making, cannabis barons out of those 4 companies.
$2.2 million is a drop in the bucket for a city of our size. And plus this is a year when we're voting on a measure here locally where we're going to add a 1.5% tax here in the city.
Wow.
And that's up to $40 million a year.
Holy
that
shit.
Tax alone is going to be beyond what cannabis will bring for the next probably 5 years. I mean, annually.
Sure.
Cannabis may bring hundreds of thousands, maybe a million or whatever. I don't know. But $40 million on a 1.5 tax increase, that takes the pressure off cannabis. Do we have to still keep funding that library, that boxing gym, that multi-service center? You have $40 million a year. Why don't we do something that promotes, again, social equity, that promotes that promotes helping the most affected areas of the city that were affected by the drug war, and make it a positive thing, as opposed to just funding something that you can't attach to cannabis in any way.
I say they fund some scholarships, man. I say they fund some college scholarships for some of these graduating seniors.
Sure, that is. I mean, invest in the future, and that is one thing that the mayor did say. He did say that the money was going to go to senior activities, or the council, I should say, because they're a team. Social senior activities, youth activities, and which is through that multi-purpose center. And then there was a fight between, should we help the homeless or should we help the elderly and the youth? Hey man, elderly and the youth, that's our future. The homeless, a lot of them aren't even from here.
Yeah, for sure.
Not that I don't care about the homeless, but a lot of them are not from
like
here.
You didn't care about the homeless, bro.
Yeah.
No, because they're not from here.
Yeah,
they're actually not homeless.
Here.
They're good, but
yeah. Well, I'm just saying they're transient.
Sure.
They come through, they stop, and they go. So if you build a place for them, we're going to do that anyway. I mean, the city's going to do that anyway. But again, man, cannabis can't save everything. It just doesn't generate enough revenue
You
unless you're
can't.
going to dedicate through, opening up licensing, something like
Open
that.
up if that's the way you're going to do it, open up licensing, but trying to get just barrels of money every time out of 3 or 4 businesses.
Yeah, and that's why it's
You're not
important,
gonna
man.
happen.
I'm sure there's listeners out there who want to get into the cannabis industry. They just don't know where to start. One of the things you can do to start is look at your own city, look at your own municipality, see what they're doing, and if they're already advanced in their ordinances or they're just beginning, you have to be involved, man. Because it's going to be too late for you to ask anything.
Yeah.
Social equity only came up here in Oxnard because I brought it up to the Planning Commission almost 2 years ago, and although social equity in the end was not really written into the ordinances, there are some components of it, like helping the elderly and the youth and the library, which is great. But had I not brought, and I'm not tooting my own horn in any way, although an ad agency creative director said, you have to toot your own horn every once in a while. Even though, I don't take complete credit for that because I was inspired to do that, who knows where it would have ended up. They would have just opened up with no social equity, no local equity influence whatsoever, and it would have just been business as usual like so many other cities do.
Fucking hero, Rodney.
Thank you.
God damn it.
Yeah.
Hero of Oxnard. Rodney, thank you very much, brother. I appreciate you talking the politics of this voting cycle with me.
Hey, man, I'm a bit of a, I came out of journalism, through my media and television, and I just really, I do get entrenched in politics, and at least the discussion. I try to follow it quite a bit, but you have to kind of pick and choose, man. You can follow federal. There's really nothing you can do other than vote on the federal level, but it's so important to advocate locally for whatever it is you do. It's important to have that community behind you. So when you're advocating locally at your local city council meeting, maybe you have to join another nonprofit organization, become a volunteer, become a board member, a vice president, or a president. I'm vice president of Kiwanis. Our mission is to help children.
Yeah.
And so I'm always thinking, okay, what can we do from a cannabis sense? What can we do? But we actually partnered with one of the licensee applicants that if they get the application, they will donate a portion of their profits to our organization.
No kidding.
And we will turn around and use it to do our work in the community.
Cannabis and Kiwanis, huh?
Cannabis and Kiwanis. So,
right.
Of course, you have to check with your own. You have to check with your own nonprofit to see if that's something that they're willing to do. I believe we checked with because cannabis is. Kiwanis is international, so we have international bylaws and guidelines that we have to follow. But we read all of the guidelines. They said, hey, as long as you're from that standpoint of cannabis, just as long as you're not going to an event high, you're not consuming at an event or any, but it didn't say anything about support.
It didn't say anything about sponsoring.
It didn't say anything about laundering. Sponsoring, being partners with.
Look, man, that Kiwanis baseball game is going to be pretty interesting, man, if they get that license.
Yeah, man. But so it's but again, to me, that's another step of normalization, right?
For sure, absolutely.
Because 2 years ago we had a Kiwanis event, and I wanted to bring in a CBD advertiser to one of our premier events, which was they call it the Tower to Tower run. We have 2 skyscrapers here in the
you run up the
city.
Stairwell?
You run up the stairwell of one, back down across the parking lot, and up to the top, and that's how it finishes. It's a great event, and we raise money. It's a Kiwanis event, but we raise money for the fire explorers for Ventura County, and so a lot of that money goes to the youth. Well, when I proposed the sponsor, a CBD company, one of the participating firemen says, "Oh, we don't want any pot shops advertising in here." Hey, dude, it's not a pot shop. But again, education.
Sure. Yeah. That's
and
where it was
everybody else on the board was fully on with having this advertiser. Every nonprofit could use any money that comes from anywhere, and it was only, I think, $250. But I had to give the guy his check back
devil's lettuce, bro.
Because this one fireman was opposed to it, but it was his he was responsible for from the fireman's point of view for the event. So we had to out of respect, we just would back that sponsor out. But now that I'm vice president, maybe things I have different. I think things are different, and we already had a commitment. We already had a commitment from them this year, because unfortunately our event was canceled, but we had a commitment that they would allow it. So again, that was one little side angle I took in local advocacy that will help normalize cannabis, and you just got to look at it a bunch of different ways, and that's the way I look at it, by trying to get it into the community and make it localized. And that CBD company said that some of their not most, but a lot of their customers are first responders.
Huh. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Hey, so speaking of which, since you said you were vice president of the Kiwanis?
Vice president of Kiwanis.
So I'm gonna change directions here with you. So earlier I was asking you if you knew any priests, because I'm gonna do a series of episodes where I'm gonna talk to a Christian pastor, Catholic priest, and a Jewish rabbi. It's kind of like a joke. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. They were all going on a plane to Pittsburgh, right?
They were on a plane. No, because you know what? I want to talk to each one of them about how they deal with the rise of popularity in cannabis in their congregation. Like, how do they approach that subject? Because in the Bible it'll tell you all kinds of stuff that you're not supposed to be addicted or use any other outside substances to elevate yourself other than the Lord. I get that. But yeah, how do they deal with just the popularity, especially older people who are mostly the people who go to church, in my opinion? I don't know. They use cannabis and CBD for certain ailments. I mean, how do they talk to their congregation about it? So that's why I was asking you if you knew any priests, because I want to see if you could introduce me and I'll talk to them, get them on the show.
I have somebody you can speak to on that.
Right on. Yeah. Because I figure that the holidays are coming up. I figure, why not talk about that for a way to get religion into the show?
Right. There you go. That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, all right, Rodney. Thanks again, brother, for coming on the show, man.
My pleasure. As like always, man. You always stimulate my brain.
Well, once again, man, let everybody know how to find you.
You can find me on Facebook, Rodney Medina, and I did buy that vanity name. No, I reserved that vanity name Facebook / Rodney Medina. You should get yours, by the way, too.
What is that? Wait,
you can just register your name on Facebook, and you just say, hey, I want the vanity, Rodney Medina, or you can put Alex Robles or In My Grow Show. So it's facebook.com / yeah, they did it years ago. I wanted to get
I'm gonna get the Alex.
Oh yeah, there you go, the Alex. And Instagram, I'm Rodney Media. You can see some of my cannabis ventures there, although they've been slowed up a bit there. And so those are the two places that you can find me.
Right on, brothers and sisters. That's it. That's the end of the show today. Don't forget. Go to patreon.com/InMyGrowShow and donate $1. That's it. Real simple. Real easy. Really inexpensive. I love you all very much. And always grow, learn, and teach.